The day I got hurt, I was on a mission with my scout team, and no more than 200 meters after we crossed this creek, do I feel this intense heat blast on my left side, and I'm thinking, holy crap, I just got hit. That was December 4th, 2005. I wake up March of 2006. And then the doctors start talking to you about what had happened. They tell you how, you received third-degree burns on 80% of your body. 15% chance to survive. Yes, now you're awake, but now they start going into what your life's going to be. Toto, they can kiss my ass. I'm not going to accept what you guys say my life's going to be. I'm going to choose what my life is going to be.
Here with a fellow has an amazing story. I can't wait to learn about him, meet him, and to hear his story and to share it with you. His name is Israel del Toro. He reigns from Juliet, Illinois, currently a resident of Colorado. And he has an amazing story and career centered around his activities in the Air Force. Israel, how are you today?
I'm doing good, sir. Got my workout in this morning, so I'm good.
Good. Well, I understand you like to be called DT, so I'll be happy to do that. Mr. Of the Bull, Del Toro. DT, I mentioned that you were from Joliet, Illinois. That's not exactly the Beverly Hills of Illinois, is it?
No, it's not. Especially not where I grew up on the east side of Joliet. It's not the very greatest part of town, you could say.
Joliet's famous for a prison, right?
Yes, sir. The famous prison where they filmed a couple movies there. One of the more famous one is Jail, or was it Something Break? It was a TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us what it was like growing up in Joliet. You're the oldest of four?
I am, sir. I'm the oldest of four. Yeah. It was like I guess I would say like any normal kid, because how we grew up, we grew up hanging out, playing outside, you get on your bikes on the weekend and you're just gone. Your parents have no idea where you're at.
Come back for dinner.
Yeah. Or you heard one of your friends from the grapevine, hey, dude, your mom's calling you to get back home.
She didn't just call you on your smartphone?
No, that was no smartphone. Yeah. So, it was like a normal, kid, from my era. We like hanging out. I was a big sports guy. So, I was always playing baseball with my friends, football, basketball, wherever we could pick up a game. That was our thing, in the neighborhood.
And back then, you're a generation younger than me, but back then I would bet it was sports were much more seasonally on now. They seem to run into one another now, but it seemed like when baseball season ended, all of a sudden the footballs came out, and then the basketballs. It was very distinct seasons. You weren't doing it all at once.
You are very right. I never thought of it that way, but you're right. It was very distinct. You knew when baseball season was over, and you knew when baseball season started. And it was. I never thought of that until you said that. I'm like, oh, you're right. But it was just, obviously being the oldest of four, a lot of responsibility came down on me. You're the oldest. Take care of your brothers and sisters,
Sure.
Take care of the younger ones. Even though I may want to play with my friends and I want my little brother to come hanging out with us, I always had to drag him with me. But, it was fine. Obviously later, when I got, closer to, 11 years old, that's when my dad wasn't working anymore. He had lung issues. And that like last year of his life, he spent it on a respirator. So, that changed a lot of things.
And you were around 10 at the time?
So, when my dad kind of wasn't able to work anymore, I think I was just about 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And then he was like that until he passed away when I was 12.
Yep. And how about your mom? You lost her too.
Yeah, I lost my mom a year and a half after my dad passed.
So you're 13, 14 years old, and now both parents are gone?
Yeah, by the age of 14, I had lost both my parents.
Yeah. And 3 younger siblings. What did you do? How How did you get along?
Well, it was well. Luckily, my dad always, my dad was my hero. I was my dad everywhere. Anywhere my dad went, I was with him. So, the night before he passed, because my dad had gone to Mexico to see if they could find, other treatments to help him.
Yeah.
And the night before, he had called the house, and I was the last one to speak to him. And, right when we're about to hang up, he tells me, I need you to promise me something. So I was like, what's that, Dad? I was like, promise me you always take care of your family. And, 12-year-old kid at the time was like, okay, whatever, Dad. And he's like, no, promise me.
What does that mean? Yeah.
Right. I was like, okay, Dad, I promise. So that promise pretty much guided me because I didn't want to let my dad down. I wanted to keep honoring my dad and the promise I made to him. So once my mom died, we were taken in by my grandparents, but they were 2 generations behind. Yeah. And, we were all athletes,
They live in the same area?
Same area. They took us in, my mom's parents. We were all athletes, except the youngest, because Christina was, 6 years old, 5 years old maybe, when my mom passed. Uh-huh. But all the rest of us were all in sports. But when my grandparents took us in, again, 2 generations behind, my grandpa was very old-fashioned. And so, he believed that the women stayed at the house, cooked, clean, none of the sports stuff. And so my sister wasn't able to play sports anymore. So a lot of times I was a lot of the mediator between that, from my grandfather to my siblings, to try to ease up a little and let them kind of do things, enjoy their youth. So again, just trying to honor that promise to my dad.
And where were your grandparents from?
So my grandparents originally were from Mexico, from the state of Chihuahua. Uh-huh. So again, they're very
old school.
Very old school. Yes, sir.
Tough circumstances, you're getting along, but at some point you decide the best thing you could do is join the military.
Yeah, I was 22 years old when I joined.
Yep.
So by this time, my sister that followed me, she was 20, because we're all 2 years apart. Yep. It was boy, girl, boy, girl. Mm-hmm. So my sister was engaged. My brother, she was 20. My brother was 18. He was already doing his thing. And the littlest one was kind of living with my sister. Mm-hmm. So I was like, and I felt like I wasn't pushing myself, like I wasn't achieving what I should achieve. Yep. Even though I had a very good job. I was making very good money, but I just felt like I wasn't pushing myself, that I wasn't living up to my expectations. And I just saw a commercial for the military, and I was like, why not?
Maybe that's the way.
Yeah, no one in my family had ever joined. Mm-hmm. And then I grew up in the era of Rambo. Who didn't want to be Rambo my age? You wanted to have that long flowing hair, that chiseled body.
And you and I are into that long flowing hair now.
Obviously, we don't have that no more. My son likes to say, Dad, you got a dad bod now? And I'm like, no, son, let me correct you. I have a father figure. But yeah.
So, how did you decide on the Air Force? What was that decision like?
Well, all my friends had told me, I had friends that joined the military, the different branches. They all told me, go Air Force. And I asked them why. And they started telling me they had the best, the best at taking care of their people, their best facilities. And then, they said, dude, they also have the best looking girls. And, 22-year-old kid, I'm like, all right, yeah, sure.
You got to have some criteria.
All right. So that's what made me, really join the Air Force. But then, joining, I didn't want to do an ordinary job, not taken away from any other career fields in the military, but I wanted something that was going to push me. So I applied to become a special warfare operator, which is a TACP, a Tactical Air Control Party.
Yep.
So we're the guys that call in the airstrikes. We're on the ground with, special forces, with, green berets.
Go and secure landing fields.
Yeah. And so I wanted to do that. Again, growing up in the era of Rambo, I wanted to be that guy in
Yeah.
real life. And I wanted to push myself. And so I did.
So you joined the Air Force. You're 22. Where do you get sent for basic?
So basic, I got sent to Lackland Air Force Base there in San Antonio, Texas.
Uh-huh.
That was nothing for me, basic training. Being yelled at, no problem. I played football in high school. I grew up in a Hispanic family. Getting yelled at is nothing new, So, I always like to tease, like, all I had to worry about that, they ain't throw chancla at me.
So San Antonio basic training. What came next?
So after that, I tried out, and basic training got to try out for special warfare, and I got selected. And being selected, I went off to, after I graduated basic, off to Herbert Field in Florida. It's in Destin, Florida area, or Fort Walton Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you start learning what it entails to be a TAC P. You go through land navigation, radio operations, how to do coordinates, how to speak on the radio. And that's about almost like 5 months of school. You're doing all that.
Pretty intense, huh?
Pretty intense weapon training. I like to tell people a lot of times, yes, it's physical. I won't take that away. It's physical, but it's also very mental because they're messing with you.
Yeah.
Because they'll rather have you break in training than out in the field. So, when I graduated and received my beret, it was one of the proudest moments for me. And then I went off to airborne school there at Fort Benning, Georgia. After then, I went to survival school up in Washington State at Fairchild. And then I finally got to my first duty station there at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Wow. And you had a surprising number of real life situations that were pretty interesting pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, I did. It's not only from personal level, losing my cousin, then my grandmother, but then heading off to downrange and losing friends. That was tough, especially losing like Airman Lozano, who was my troop. Losing him in Afghanistan, that was a tough one.
Was your first foreign assignment wasn't Afghanistan?
No,
It was
no, my first foreign one was Bosnia.
Yep.
Bosnia was more of an intel gathering. It was unique because that was my first, assignment to a different country.
Yes.
To experience, a different part of the world. So that was a unique experience. And then I come home, and then, I think a couple months later, that's when 9/11 happens.
And that changes everything for you in the military.
Yeah, it completely changed everything. Most people don't realize that, especially as in a career field like myself, if there's not war, you're really not doing anything. You're training. That's all you're doing. Going to training, honing your skill. And so before 9/11, all that we did was, I went to Bosnia, but again, that wasn't a war fighting. That was more intel gathering. So a lot of times it was just training. But when 9/11 happened, the temple just wrapped up, and it was just nonstop until.
What was your first deployment after 9/11?
So after 9/11, it was I didn't go on the first push to Afghanistan because I had just gotten back from Bosnia. I was a little upset and jealous at the same time because I wanted to go. Yeah. But I knew a lot of my friends were doing a lot of great stuff out there. But then I headed off to Iraq when I was out there before it all kicked off. And then I was in Korea. And then, after Korea, I ended up getting stationed in Vicenza, Italy. And out of Italy, I headed off to Afghanistan again.
Mm-hmm. And how many tours did you do there?
In Afghanistan, I did one tour. Mm-hmm. Iraq, I did one tour. And then there are other tours I can't speak about.
Yeah, gotcha. So Your life changed though in Afghanistan.
It did. When I got there in August 2005, I was the only TAC-P or JTAC, Joint Terminal TAC Controller. That's a qualification to support two Army companies, an SF team, and a scout team. So I was constantly out. As soon as I got to my FOB, forward operating base, I think maybe a week after I got there, I was already out on my first mission. And people don't realize it as a JTAC, they're going to put you in a team where they think there's going to be trouble. So, every time you go out, there's a possibility you're going to get in a firefight or in danger and possibly get hurt. But you don't think about that. You just go out there, do what you got to do, take care of your team so you can come back home and eventually go back to the States and be with your loved ones.
And along the way, Carmen came into your life.
She did. I met Carmen, my wife, right before I headed off to Bosnia. And it's weird, meeting Carmen, because I had gone to Mexico because the year prior I had lost my cousin who was like a brother to me. And I just didn't want to go back home. I was like, what? I haven't seen my grandma from my dad's mom in 10 years. I was like, I'm going to go out there and visit her.
In Chihuahua?
No, my dad's family's from Jalisco, Guadalajara.
Uh-huh.
So, no intention. I was like, I think I was 24, 25. At that time, I did look like Rambo body-wise. I didn't have the long flowing hair, but body-wise, I was chiseled. And I was just thinking, man, I'm just going to have fun, have a good time. Never thought that I was going to meet my future wife. Mm-hmm. And I met her there, and we just hit it off. And, we ended up getting married like 2 years later.
Uh-huh.
So
now you're in Afghanistan, you're married, and you have a little one.
I have my little boy. At the time, he was 3 years old when I was downrange.
And he's Israel Junior?
He's the third. I'm the junior.
Oh, you're the junior. Okay.
I'm the junior, yeah.
So tell us about that horrifying day.
So the day I got hurt, which was December 4th, 2005, I was on a mission with my scout team. And there is a high-value target that we had to capture or kill, and a supply route that the Taliban was using that we had to destroy. And we were out there. Nothing really had happened those couple of days that we're out there. But the day that I got hurt, we were coming back, and there's only one road in, one road out into the area we were operating in. And we were on our way to pick up our second half of our team because we had split into two. One was going to be Overwatch, and one was going to be up in the mountains trying to capture the Taliban spotters, because that's what they're doing. They're going up the mountains and watching us. Mm-hmm. And so we're on the way picking those guys up. And we crossed this creek. And no more than 200 meters after we crossed this creek, do I feel this intense heat blast on my left side. And I'm thinking, holy crap, I just got hit. And, one always hear the stories of how your life flashes in front of you.
Yeah.
But I personally never believed that. I'm like, oh, whatever. But when I got hit, all these images came flash. It was like an old movie reel. You know how the pictures are just like going by? But the things that I remember were things that hadn't happened yet, that were supposed to happen. Like the three distinct images I remember were me and my wife finally getting married by the Catholic Church after our third attempt. Because all the other times we tried, I headed downrange. Made her honeymooning in Greece. Mm-hmm. And then the last one was me teaching my boy how to play baseball. And then something in my head says, you got to get out of this truck. So I pull the lever, I get out of the truck. But when I get out of the truck, I was on fire from head to toe.
Oh.
But I knew that creek was behind me about 200 meters. So I turned to run to it, but the flames overtook me, and I collapsed. And I'm literally laying there thinking, I'm going to die here. I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to break my promise to my family that I always come back. I'm going to break my promise to my son that I'll never let him grow up without his dad like I did. But most importantly, I was going to break my promise to my dad that I will always take care of my family. And then that's when my teammate says, DT, you're not going to die here. He helps me up, and we both jumped into the creek to extinguish the flames. And the sound that I heard once I jumped in there, the same sound you hear when you put a hot pan in cold water, that sizzle sound.
Wow.
Yeah. My story didn't end there because, most people think, okay, you're in the water, you're cool now. I was like, no, because it's the Taliban, they know who are the guys that call in the airstrikes. They look for the guys that have the radios, that have the vehicles with the antennas, and they try and take us out first. Because as soon as they hit me, the guys that were going to pick up, the rest of my team got hit in a crossfire, and now they're calling back for, hey, we need help. Where's Gunslinger? That was my call sign. We need CAS, close air support. So even though I was injured, my teams are needing help. And I like some people, even though I was Air Force, they're Army, or if I'm with Marines or Navy, and yes, we tease each other, but when we're downrange, we're all brothers. Yes. We all take care of each other. We watch each other's back. So they're family. So I had to take care of my family. Again, I had to honor my dad's promise. Take care of your family. So I had to figure out what to do. My radios I had on me were destroyed. My backup radios in the truck that just got destroyed. And luckily, one of the other scout members had a radio called Nembitter. And I told him, get on this frequency and repeat everything I say so we can get some help here. And by the time the last transmission went out, I started having a hard time breathing, and I started to get scared. I always tell people I'll never, stand up here and tell them that I had nerves of steel. I was like Rambo. For maybe a few minutes I was, when the adrenaline was up. But once that adrenaline came down, fear started creeping in. Me having a hard time breathing started creeping in. So I started telling the medic, where's the medevac? I'm tired. I'm having a hard time breathing. And I wanted to lay down and sleep. I told him, I told my medic, let me lay down. Let me close my eyes so I can catch my breath. But he knew if he let me fall asleep, most likely I'm not going to wake up again.
Yeah.
Because even though I didn't think I was that badly injured, he knew I was. And then, my medic starts, as I'm trying to close my eyes, he's trying to motivate me. He's trying to keep me going. He's trying to find my spark. Because I like to say we all have a spark, something that drives us, something that keeps us going.
Yes.
And he knew my son was my spark. So he started using that. He's like, come on, DT, you say you'll never let your son grow up without his dad. Fight for your boy, fight for your boy. And he's making me saying it, making me yell it. And then he says the weirdest thing. He's like, DT, fight for your son so you can teach him to be a pimp. And I'm like, did he really just say that? And he repeats it. And so there's Sergeant Toro, butt naked in Afghanistan in December, yelling at the top of his lungs, I got to fight for my son to teach him to be a pimp. But it worked because it kept me going, kept me awake until the medevac came.
Yep.
And I remember they wanted to carry me in. I was like, oh, hell no. I walked into this fight. I'm going to walk out. So I get into the helicopter. They fly me to my fob. They take me to the little field hospital there. I see the doctor cutting off my watch and then telling me you're going to be okay. That was March 2000, that was December 4th, 2005. I wake up March of 2006.
Wow. 3 months you were in a coma?
Well, technically 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah, because I woke up towards the end of
Oh, yeah,
March.
March. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And do you have any recollection of that time, or it's just blank?
It's just blank. You have kind of images or dreams, kind of like I think there were
Light,
dreams.
maybe?
What was that, sir?
Changes in light?
I don't remember changes of light. The stories that I think they're dreams because my wife tells me or my friends tell me that when they were there, they will say that I will have like episodes of like I thought I was still downrange or I was thinking that I was somewhere else.
Yeah.
But like me specifically remembering those 4 months, like no, I just have. But I think a lot of those later dreams were towards the end when I was finally waking up.
And when you wake up in March of '06, what's your state of mental health like there? What are you thinking? Is your functioning back? Are you back? Are you awake, or are you drifting into consciousness?
So what I remember, I was completely awake.
Yeah.
I don't know if like before that, I was still in and out. So, but the time that I remember is, I remember seeing all the doctors, my wife, Chief Humphreys, who was my family liaison officer for the Air Force there. And the doctors kind of asking me questions. Like,
And where were you for those 4 months?
at this time, I was at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio.
Uh-huh. And you don't remember being transported there or anything, huh?
No, I don't remember. Because one of the questions the doctors asked, do you know where you're at? And I'm thinking, okay, I got hurt. I know I got hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm probably at Launchville, Germany, at the hospital there.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you're in San Antonio, Texas at Brooke Army Medical Center. They're like, okay, do you know the date? I was like, I don't know, December. I was like, obviously I was out a couple of days. I'm thinking December something. It's like, no, Sergeant Toro is like March 20 something, 2006.
And did you comprehend what you were hearing then? Oh my God, I've been unconscious for 4 months.
Well, it starts hitting you.
Yeah.
And then you're starting to notice, why can't I move? Because all my muscles had atrophied.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I start seeing that, I can kind of look down. I'm like, okay, I see that I'm missing digits. I'm all wrapped up. I have tubes in me. I can't talk because I have a trach. And then the doctors start talking to you about what had happened. They tell you how, you received third-degree burns on 80% of your body, 15% chance to survive. You almost died 3 months. You almost died 3 times on us. You were in a coma for 4 months. And yes, now you're awake, but now they start going into what your life's going to be. Like, well, Sergeant Toro, you're going to be here for another year and a half. You may not walk again. You'll be on a respirator for the rest of your life. And your military career pretty much is over. And that's when when they finished saying that, everyone's like quiet. Like they're waiting for your response. And I couldn't talk. They could only read my lips, but I pretty much, told them they can kiss my ass. I was like, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept what you guys say my life's going to be. I'm going to choose what my life is going to be. So after they told me that, like end of March, like about a month and a half later, I left that hospital walking and breathing on my own.
Oh my God. Amazing. And you're so extraordinary, DT, because you're the first person I understand ever who is certified as 100% disabled. You re-enlisted.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what the thought process was there.
Well, for me, once I got out of the hospital, I was, yes, I left the hospital. I wasn't that strong. I didn't have the stamina. It's like I could maybe walk 100 feet and then I had to sit down and rest. But my whole thing is like, anytime anyone asks me, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to continue to serve. And people kept asking me why. It's like, Sergeant Toro, you start your, because once I was getting stronger and stronger, I started just do speaking, public speaking, motivating other
And how did that
service.
come about the first time? But so you said, "Hey, I want to tell people that there's alternatives. That even if you dealt a bad hand, you can make better things happen." Was it your desire? Did someone say, "DT, you have a story to share. I think you should tell your story"? How did that happen?
Well, at first, I will go back. Uh, when I left the hospital, I would go back to the ICU, to the hospital, and talk to guys. Because I remember when I was going through my recovery, I would see the older guys come in looking, having fun, enjoying life.
Yep.
And so I was like, yes, did I miss being with my teammates downrange? Of course. But I knew all these wounded service members that were here in the hospital were my team.
Yes.
Even though I was a wounded guy, I was still an NCO in the Air Force. And the role of an NCO or anyone in a leadership position is to make things better for your teammates that follow you and to have their back. And that's what I did. I would go back, just talk to them, tell them it'll be okay. Trust me, dude. I know how this sucks, but just stay positive, keep going. And then the whole public speaking started when they were going to give me my Purple Heart. And General Mosley, who was the chief of staff of the Air Force at the time, had this panel that go around speaking to service members at different bases around the U.S. and the world. And he asked me to be part of it. And so that's how I first got doing the whole public speaking thing. So when, people kept asking me, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to still stay in the military. And people was like, Sergeant Toro, you can retire, get your disability, or your retirement. You're becoming a public speaker. They make good money, and they're right. Some high-end public speakers can make, close to six figures for like 45 minutes of speaking. But I used to tell them, you know what? I was like, there's hundreds of thousands of people that make tons of money and hate their job.
Mm-hmm.
I loved my job. I love being in the Air Force. I love serving my country. I love being a TAC P. So why am I going to give that up for a couple extra bucks? And it took 5 years to prove to the military, to the Air Force, that I still had value, that I could still contribute to the mission. Yes. Could I go downrange? No. I like to say, unless we become like Star Wars and I get a cool Luke Skywalker hand and I use a Jedi mind trick on people, but I knew I could teach. I could get the next generation of warriors trained to go out there and do the mission.
Yeah.
And that's when in February of 2010, that's when I became the first 100% disabled airman to re-enlist in the Air Force.
And how much longer did you stay in?
I stayed until I retired August of 2019.
And since then, primarily on the speaking tour?
Yes, sir. I did that. And then I wrote my book, Patriots Promise. For years, people asked me to write a book. And I used to tell them, I was like, dude, I don't even like reading. You want me to write a book? I was like, and I always thought only old people wrote books. So I don't know if that's saying that I'm an old person now because I wrote a book.
I think this is a big year for you in terms of aging, right?
Yeah, I hit in April. I hit 5 years or 50. I've become 50 years.
That's a milestone year for you this year.
Yeah, because it'll also be 20 years since my injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did that. And the book thing was, I still didn't want to do it. But what really convinced me to do it was, I remember speaking to this huge crowd at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey.
Yep.
Like the whole base was there. And after I do a speech, I usually open up for question and answer.
Yep.
And sometimes people ask a question when I'm up there, or sometimes they'll wait till I get off stage And when I'm shaking hands, they'll come ask me a question, or sometimes they'll reach out to me after I'm gone on social media. But this time, this young lady, she was an A1C, meaning she was maybe in the Air Force, maybe 2 years, stands up in front of everybody, says, Senator Toro, I'd like to thank you for helping me find my spark, to showing that there's still joy in life. I've tried to end my life so many times, but I hear your story, how you never gave up, how you kept going. It shows me I can continue to live. And it hit me because this girl stood up in front of all her leadership to say that. And that's when it really hit me. It's like, maybe I should write a book, because I can go speak, but I can't be everywhere.
Right.
But a book can reach
you,
more people than me going speaking.
You can make a difference.
And it can make a difference, because I'm a realist. I know I'm not going to touch everybody I speak to, but those one or two that truly mean it, like that young lady, all that pain, all that suffering I went through all throughout my journey in life is worth it to be able to help that one person. Because again, it's still, honoring that promise I made to my dad. Take care of your family. Because yes, originally that promise was my brothers and sisters, but now has evolved 21 that's having a hard time, that needs help. I see them as my family. And if I'm able to do that, I'm making my dad proud.
How did you wind up living in Colorado?
So after, I came back, re-enlisted and became an instructor. I did that for 5 years, and then I started to excel in sports, in adaptive sports and Paralympic style, and started winning and breaking records. So the Air Force sent me here to Colorado Springs to train at the Olympic Training Center as a para world-class athlete for the Paralympics.
And what events did you excel in?
So I own 3 world records in shot put, javelin, and discus. Wow. And I'm also an air rifle shooter.
Wow. Yeah. And the Invictus Games became an important element of your life.
It did. The Invictus Games, that was started by Prince Harry. That evolved from him going to the Warrior Games, which started in 2010, where it was, each branch, wounded, injured, ill service members will compete in Paralympic style games. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, they're all competing against each other. And then when we started getting British teams to come to it, Prince Harry came one year and he wanted to make it bigger. And that's when he expanded to the Invictus Games, where now it was all wounded, injured, ill service members from all around the world compete in Paralympic style games.
DT, when you guys get together, is there an immediate bond? Is it a real fraternity?
With who? Like who?
When you get together with other injured service people?
Oh, it is. It's it's funny. It's a camaraderie that you don't find anywhere else. We may not see each other. We may not even know each other. But we go out, we get there on the field of play. And dude, it's like we've been friends for years. Like all other service members from different branches, from different countries. It doesn't matter. We have that special bond of no other people, no other individual really experienced unless you've gone through what we've gone through.
Yeah.
So, and for us, a lot of times, it's not about us winning. It's about being there for each other and supporting us and showing the world that we're still achieving things, that we're still living, and to show the rest of the world, that you can still do things even no matter if you're missing a leg or missing both legs or missing an arm, or if you're blind or you're severely burned like me, you can still do a lot of fun stuff out there. And so that's the cool thing about, competitions like that.
And in addition to being an author, a speaker, a competitive athlete, you're also a TV star.
I don't know if I'm a TV star.
Well, I've seen you on TV.
It's always funny, when people see me on, commercials or events, and I'm, at the ESPYs receiving an award or presenting an award. But more people now recognize me more for a commercial with the Tunnel to Towers. And it's not really me, I think. It's more they see my car, the car that my dad used to drive, a 72 Chevelle SS.
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh, you're the guy that owns the car. I'm like, yeah. I'm not the guy that got blown up or won an ESPY or an author. I'm the guy that owns the cool red Chevelle. Yeah.
And tell me about Frank Siller and the Tunnel of the Towers. What did they do? Frank tried for 2 years to try and get me a house. And I would say no. I kept saying no to him. I like to tease him and say, it's like, dude, you're like that desperate guy continuously trying to hit on the girl for her to finally say yes. Because, I met Frank because I had gone back home to there. I grew up in Joliet, New Lenox area. And I became real good friends with the mayor of New Lenox. And he had asked me, DT, we come speak at one of our events. We're raising money for Tundra Towers. I'm like, of course. So I go and I speak, not knowing that Frank Siller was going to be there. Mm-hmm. And, he comes up to me and he's like, oh my gosh, DT, that was an amazing speech. Thank you for helping us raise money. I was like, no problem, man. It's like, I'm not a wealthy guy, but I could give my time and speak to help a cause. And that's when he starts asking me, has anyone ever built your house? Like, no. I was like, let us build your house. Like, no. I was like, it'd probably be cheaper just to pay off my mortgage. I'll be happy with that. It's like, no, you need a house. I'm like, I'm not gonna let it. 'Cause for me, I felt weird that, man, I don't want people to think that I do what I do, help charities to get stuff from them. Yep.
Or I always thought other people were more deserving than I was. There's other guys that needed more than me. And like I said, it took 2 years. It took until I talked to some of my mentors. It's like, hey man, the Toro guys want to build me a house. And they're the ones that convinced me. They're like, DT, you've helped so many people. Let people finally help you. And that's when I said yes. Of course, when I finally said yes, it was during COVID. so it took, 2.5 years for them to finish the home. Yeah.
And it's your dream home now?
It is. When I finally said yes, I asked, because Frank, they ask you, where do you want your house to get built? You can pick wherever you want. And I had bought land here in Colorado Springs. I had 35 acres back in 2018. So it was still pretty cheap.
Yep.
And I grew up in the city, but my dad's family were all ranchers in Mexico. So anytime we went home, my grandma lived in the main town, but all my aunts and uncles had their ranches around. So I would take off and spend my whole vacation on the ranches. So I always wanted a ranch. So when I asked Frank, it's like, can we build it on my property, on the land I have here? It's like, yes. And there's a moment, it was last year, or no, that first summer that I moved in here. So that would have been summer of 2003. I was sitting in my back porch of my house, and I have 35 acres, and my backyard faces the mountains, Pikes Peak. Mm-hmm. And I have my dog sitting next to me. And I was such at peace. I called my wife and I had told her, if I had died at that moment, I would have been okay. Because I was
just because you had a sense of
calmness
and calmness. Yeah.
Calmness and tranquility. Like it was just perfect.
If it had happened, you were fine with it, but you didn't want it to happen.
Of course, I didn't want it to happen. But if it did, I'd be okay with it.
Tell me about your siblings. Do you still have good relationships with them?
I do. Like my brother, he comes out every 4th of July out here with me. with his wife and my godson. He loves hanging out here on the ranch. My godson, my brother teases me. He's like, or he'll tease my son. He's like, oh no, you better watch out. Your cousin may fight you for the ranch. uh, but and then my sisters, I see that when I come go visit them back in Joliet.
I'm so happy to hear you say the good things that you do about Tunnel of Towers. I have a friend who does a lot of work with them, and I said, tell me they're as good as they seem to be. He goes, absolutely. He said, this is a charity you don't have to worry about. They're good people doing the good work every day.
They are. They're very good, and like I said, they really want to help. They stay in contact with you. They see how you're doing.
Yep.
Like I said, they're family. They really are, and I still feel weird receiving a home, but I'm very thankful for them.
Yeah, good for you.
Because it is one stressor that you don't got to worry about, and like I said, one time's like, sometimes not everyone comes back, but when some of us that do come back, we may not come back all the same. We may not come back the same, and we may need help. And thank God to guys like that, like Tunnel of Towers and other organizations like them that are there for their service members and first responders.
Over the past few years here at our companies, the flowers companies, we came to the realization, we're in the gift business. We help people have more and better relationships, and lots of times that involves gifting. And I have a buddy I wrote a book with who's a brilliant psychologist, and I have a board member who did some work for us, and all of that congealed around the idea that giving, like Tunnel to Towers does, like you do, that really is the gift. Because when we give, it lights up a certain part of our brain. That's where the endorphins are released. And so the act of giving is important to you. And you see it in your eyes when you talk about giving a speech and connecting with a young lady in the audience who come up to you afterwards. That you feel terrific about the fact that you were able to connect and you were able to make a difference. And that's your giving. And now you can understand why Frank Siller and the team at Tunnel of Towers feels so good and gets up so early in the morning to do the work they do, because giving is their gift. And it has so much reward for them in so many different ways. And you've learned that with your speaking, with your book, and with your visits and your participation in the Invictus Games, creating community and relationship. What messages do you try and give to your audiences, to the people you come in contact with, about the importance of relationship? I've heard it all throughout our conversation today about your relationship with your siblings, your relationship with your father and your mother, your relationship with your grandparents, and then your relationship with your teammates in combat, and how you realized that you just couldn't take what had been dealt to you, that you still had battlefield responsibilities for their life, and you had to force yourself to act in the spirit of that camaraderie. Tell me about relationships and how they play an important role in your life and your motivation to overcome the immense challenges you faced.
For me, I tell people that, all throughout my journey, you hit on it. I always had people by my side that helped me get through things. Because I like to say, you can't do it on your own. You just can't. I wouldn't have been able to make it to the creek if my teammate didn't help me get to it.
Yes.
I wouldn't have been able to make it to the stay awake to the helicopter if my teammate didn't keep me awake fighting. Yeah. I couldn't make it when I lost my parents without, my brothers and sisters, my teammates, my high school teammates, my sports teammates. And then when I got hurt, I wouldn't have been able to make it through my bad days. Because again, I'm not going to sit here and say I never had a bad day. You're going to have a bad day. I went from a 200-pound muscle head to 115 pounds. You're going to have bad days. But luckily I had my family. I had my friends there being not only by my side, but more importantly, being by my wife and my son's side,
Yes.
you know, and that's what really helped me get through a lot of things. And that's what really caused me to kind of continue speaking, because I saw people be there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me be there for someone that may need that help. And so that's really what it is you can't do it on your own. You need people to come out ahead. And luckily I had that support, because I could tell you, my wife can tell me, that we saw a lot of guys that didn't leave the hospital, didn't
Yes.
make it out, because they didn't have that support. They had their loved ones just leave them because they didn't want to deal with it. And those ones sometimes didn't make it out of the hospital. So I was lucky. I was lucky that I had support.
DT, if you don't mind my asking, what role does or did faith play in your life, in your recovery? Is it an important component?
Faith, I grew up Catholic, but for a
Well, it's
long
almost
time,
like having your faith, right?
yeah, I grew up Catholic. And for a long time, I thought I was cursed. I really did. Because anytime I had a high in life, something will happen. I finally go to school where all my friends are at, and I lose my dad. I'm about to start high school, I lose my mom. You know, I joined the military, I lose my cousin. I become certified, I lose my grandma. No, I lose my grandma first. I lose my cousin next. So I always had, why is this happening to me? And so for a long time, it irked me. It's like, why is God putting me through all this stuff? And maybe, it took me after my injury, even then, I'm like, why is this still happening? It took me when I started going back and helping people, speaking to other service members, where I realized, okay, now I understand what I went through my entire life to get me through this major thing that was about to have to happen to me on December 4th of 2005.
Mm.
So, since then, my faith has always been part of me. It's always been a real big part for my wife. Being from Mexico, she's very, very, very religious. Very, loved Pope John Paul II. She was so. She was always more into the religion than I was. But now, since my injury, we're side by side. We go to church together. We try and be the best that we can, for our God and for the people out there. So, it's helped, been a big part of my injury.
It's
But
so
before
interesting to hear
that, I
what you
just
said.
felt cursed,
Yeah. Interesting to hear what you said about you and Carmen knowing people in the hospital and the difference between those who had support people around them, had faith, had that inner determination, how much those variables mattered to who left the hospital and who didn't, huh?
It did. It mattered a lot. And one of the other uh, gentlemen that I contribute a lot to my recovery was Father Jimmy. He was the priest there at BAMC. And then when me and my wife finally were able to get married by the church of August 2009, we flew him to Chicago to marry us, because he was so intricate in my recovery. I was like, we, who else is going to marry us? It has to be Father Jimmy.
Yeah,
And so that was another pretty cool moment, having Father Jimmy being there with us and our happy moment.
it's great. DT, what's next? What's on your list of things you want to accomplish next? Another book?
I don't know. It's
You got to put that Chevelle in some car shows.
oh, it goes to car shows,
Yeah.
you know. But when I go to car shows as a Chevelle, I don't go to win. I love cars. My dad loved cars. That's
Another
how.
way to have relationships, to hang around with people with common.
Yeah,
They're
you
all
know,
good,
car.
fun people.
I think car guys are the closest to the camaraderie I had in the military,
Interesting.
because a lot of them are prior military too.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, and and they're so helpful. I mean, the car community is an amazing community. A lot of the car shows we do is to raise money for charities,
Yeah.
And they're always there. You may have an issue with your car. It's like, dude, I can't figure this out. They're like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? So, or you'll get new ideas, which that's the one part my wife doesn't like. Is like, you don't need to do nothing new to your car. But it is such a great, that's the thing that I do over the summers.
It's
Me and my
another.
wife, we go to car shows,
It's
and
another
we love it.
community. Well, you walk the walk, you talk the talk in terms of being a person of conviction, being a person of faith, being a person of relationships and commitments, and understanding that everyone has something to give. And I so applaud the fact that you're living a good and purposeful life and making such a difference in so many other people's lives. I'm glad I finally had a chance to meet you right in person after seeing you on TV so frequently.
Nah,
And
thank
thanks,
you.
DT. Thanks for sharing your story with our community. If someone in our community would like to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I'm on social media. So I have my Instagram account, which is IDT21, my Facebook account, which is Israel DT Del Toro Jr. But also I have my website, which is Del Toro Strong, where they can reach out to me through email there.
Del Toro Strong, DELTORO
Uh-huh.
Strong.com.
.com. Yes, sir.
And so if they wanted you for a speaking engagement,
Yep,
that's where they go.
they can go there.
Yep,
And
DelToroStrong.com.
and like I said, they can reach out to me, even just to ask a question. And I'll always try and get back to them as quickly as I can. Because, I always said I'm never going to be that guy where he acts like excuse my language, his shit don't stink.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to be that guy, because I think we've all had someone that we admire, that we looked up to, and then we finally met them and they disappointed us. And you're like, man, I wish I never met that person, so I could still have them in that status. So I said, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to, someone wants to reach out to say, hey, can we talk? I got you. Someone wants to take a photo with me? I got you. Someone wants to come say hi to me? Come say hi to me.
Yeah.
I've had people like at the gym, is like come up to me, like, oh my God, I've been wanting to come say hi to you for such a long time, but I want to bug you. It's like, no, come say hi to me. Now, if I'm under the bench and I'm throwing up about 250, probably not the best time to come say hi to me. When I'm resting, come say hi to me. But it's I always would love to have if someone is having a hard time, they need to talk, reach out. Because again, I'm honoring my dad's promise by taking care of my family. Because again, at the end of the day, I'm still that 12-year-old kid trying to make his dad proud of him.
Well, you're a darn good 12-year-old kid, and you're a very special guy, DT. I'm so happy and proud to have met you.
Thank you, sir. And hopefully we'll get to meet one day in person.
We'll be in touch.
All
DT
right,
Strong, baby.
all right, take care.
Thanks.